Hey, it's Rich, the Louisiana Hobby Guy, and today we're going to be doing something new that I've never done before, and that is a talking head video. And I usually don't do these because my old brain doesn't send the right information to my mouth, and I think one thing and I say another, but I'm going to try and stay on track today. And I've taken some time to read all of my notes ahead of time for this video twice. So I also have them on the screen right next to me here. So I'm going to try not to go off topic today, and I'm going to stay away from going on those tangents. Now, I know this is not going to be my most popular video, and in fact, it's probably going to be one of my least popular videos. However, I don't do my videos based on popularity or based on profit. These videos are made with the intention of educating folks on laser engraving, whether it be Lightburn, doing projects in the other shop, whatever it might be. Today is something slightly different. And yes, most of the videos you're going to find on YouTube are going to be for profit, but that's not what my channel is all about. I'm old and retired, and this is my hobby, making videos on laser engraving. And the only intention that I have is helping the hobby laser community. And by doing so and hearing all of the feedback from my viewers makes my hobby very enjoyable. So, with that said, I'm guessing that you saw the thumbnail for this video and you're trying to make a decision as to whether or not to get into laser engraving, and hopefully, based on my 30 years of experience, I can provide some information for you that can help you in the decision-making process in this video. Today I'm going to be talking to all of you out there that are considering whether or not to get into laser engraving, whether as a hobby or as a business, or even adding it to an existing business like a craft store, for example, or perhaps you may already be involved in and invested in the hobby and you're wondering why you're not making any profit. Well, we're going to cover all the bases today, and I might be able to answer some of those questions that you might have. We're going to see if I can do that today. So, where did the topic for this video come from? That's a good question. I try and answer all of the comments on my videos to the best of my ability and experience. And when I read through them, I realize I have a lot of people that watch my channel that don't own a laser. Yeah, they're looking for a new hobby, or perhaps an addition to their current business for a specific purpose, or maybe they have a craft store. Maybe they're looking to make personalized gifts for friends, family, who knows. But whatever the reason, I do see a lot of comments saying they don't own a laser yet, but they're preparing to buy one by learning all they can about lasers before actually making the purchase. And this is the very smart consumer, in my opinion. I personally do the same thing with lots of products that I buy. One recent comment in particular that stuck in my head, and there are several similar comments that I see every week on my videos. This particular one said, "I've been watching all of your videos in the Lightburn College playlist for the last month, and I only have 3 more to go, and I don't even own a laser yet." And I see a lot of these comments. It's not just that one in particular. Lots of similar comments like that. So I wanted to take a few minutes today to dedicate this video to my viewers who haven't purchased a laser yet, but are planning to. And my goal is to help them to decide if this hobby is right for them. So today we're going to cover the top 10 questions that I would ask you if you asked me if laser engraving was right for you. And this might even apply to some people that have already started the hobby looking to make a profit but haven't gotten anywhere. So determining whether laser engraving is right for you depends on several things: your interest, goals, resources, and circumstances. So here are the top 10 questions to consider that hopefully can help you make a more informed decision. Let's start with number 1. Are you interested in being creative and designing? Now, you don't necessarily have to be a designer or even a creative person, but it helps. If you know me personally, you'd find out that I am not a creative person at all. In fact, I usually have to spend an hour or more browsing Google Images on a particular topic or holiday just to get ideas and inspiration for new projects. If a holiday's coming up, like Valentine's Day for instance, the only thing that would pop into my head would be a heart. That's it. Maybe 2 hearts. But a quick search of Google Images and I can find 100 ideas for Valentine's Day projects as a starting point. So while I'm not necessarily creative, I can force the creative process visually by looking at other projects online. If you're not creative and you don't want to spend time browsing for ideas, you can always buy files online, but that can get expensive over time, and there's no guarantee that the files you buy will work with your software or your laser. Trust me, folks, I can't tell you how many of my patrons have bought files off Etsy and other places and then came to me and asked if I can fix them so they'll be able to use them on their laser. I'm sure you've heard this story before. There are great designers out there, and there are great designs, and some of them actually created by degreed designers. However, if they're not experienced in laser design, chances are their designs might not work properly on your laser. So if you're depending on purchasing files online as your main source of creativity, you may be sorely disappointed with the outcome. I would highly recommend learning the design process, whether it be from hours of YouTube videos and following along in the software, like with my Lightburn college playlist on my channel, or even a college course on graphic design to get started. I would highly recommend investing the time and effort needed to learn how to design files for yourself. And this can be as easy as watching other people design them and learning all of the design tools just by watching the videos. That is very important, learning all of the tools. Many of the questions I get asked in the comments on my videos are so basic, I sometimes have to ask myself how some people have even gotten into this hobby without taking the time to actually learn how to use the software or the laser itself. So being able to design and be creative do not necessarily have to go hand in hand to begin. You can be a designer and not necessarily be creative, or you can be creative and not know how to design. The important thing is, are you willing to learn either or both, like I had to do? And as long as you have the motivation to create and design, and you're willing to undergo the learning curve involved, that's really all that it takes. So, number 2, do you enjoy hands-on projects? Laser engraving requires a lot of hands-on work, including purchasing and preparing the materials, designing the project in the software, physically operating the laser, and understanding all of the safety requirements, the post-processing, and of course the maintenance of the machine. If you enjoy everything involved in taking raw materials and transforming it into a work of art, including the learning curve, this hobby could be appealing for you. Some of the things to consider are: 1. Overcoming challenges or solving problems that arise during the process. 2. Testing prototypes and making improvements or adjustments that may be necessary along the way. 3. Some hands-on projects may require collaboration with other people, like customers, with proofs and redesigns. The key here is your direct involvement and possibly the involvement of others, and the manipulation of all the files and all the elements of the project in the process has to be appealing to you. And I look at it as a challenge. If you see it as a challenge and something that you're excited to do, this might be the right hobby for you. So with all hands-on projects, the process of the prototyping and redesigning can sometimes be frustrating. But the ultimate outcome of the final product is always very rewarding, sometimes with a lot of waste. Moving on to number 3, do you have the space and the budget? Lasers and the accessory equipment require space and possibly a substantial financial investment based on what you're planning to do. Consider whether you have the necessary space for all the equipment and if your budget allows for the initial cost, accessories, safety equipment, maintenance, and material expenses to get started. So the space is easy. Check the manufacturer's measurements on their website and see if it'll fit in your workspace, right? But keep in mind, you have to factor in all of the possible extra space requirements needed, like accessories, enclosures, exhaust fans, etc. Developing tunnel vision can be a big mistake. You have to look at the entire scope of the equipment, everything that's needed, including the accessories and the peripherals. I would suggest that you spend a lot of time preparing for your new laser by asking questions in online communities, like my forums, for instance, or Facebook groups, or any interactive online resource for laser engraving, which I'll put a few links down below the video for you to follow and do some investigation of your own. If you've already decided on a laser or are on the fence, join the manufacturer's Facebook group and see how other owners are setting up their machines and what necessary accessories may be needed, if any. At the very least, you'll need an enclosure and fume extraction if it's not provided with the machine. When it comes to budget, this is where a lot of people make their biggest mistake. They set a budget of some specific amount, maybe the disposable income at hand at the moment, say $500 you have in your back pocket, and then they go shopping for a $500 laser. This is a good example of setting yourself up for failure. Your budget should be in line with the intended use of the laser, not a specific price range. I want to give you an example of something that I've heard over and over and over again in the last few years. It's a quick story about a retired Marine who was looking to start a hobby engraving business, an online store, where the only product he sells are personalized dog tags. So he jumped on YouTube and he started watching some laser engraving videos, more specifically manufacturer product videos. And you have to be careful when you watch some of these videos because the manufacturers tend to exaggerate about what their products can do. So he decided on a very popular diode laser engraver, which absolutely did not fit the purpose intended, and he spent about $1,300 on the laser, only to find out that it would take him upwards of 45 minutes to engrave one dog tag. Well, this gentleman contacted me through my YouTube channel and asked me how he could possibly speed up the process, because he was looking to be able to do this quickly, only as a part-time hobby. Maybe something that he could do 30 or 40 dog tags in an hour's time. Well, I told him that he started off making the wrong decision on purchasing a diode laser, and that he needed to have a fiber laser to be able to do what he originally intended. So my first piece of advice to him was to return the diode laser that he bought and quadruple his budget and pick up a fiber laser, which he did. So the moral of the story is to purchase the laser for the intended use. If you're looking to buy a laser, budget should not be the first consideration. The intended purpose of the laser should be your first consideration. And if your budget doesn't allow it, well, then put aside $20 a week for a few months until you reach the point where you can purchase the laser that you need for the intended purpose. Otherwise, you'll end up becoming frustrated with the purchase, scrapping the entire idea, and you will have thrown good money out the window on a laser you have no use for. I'm going to take 1 second, folks, and be that I'm still sick, just get a little bit to drink before we move on to number 4. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is, are you patient and are you detail oriented? Laser engraving often requires great attention to detail and lots of patience, especially when setting up designs, material testing, adjusting parameters, and fine-tuning the process to achieve the desired results in the prototyping. So let's talk patience. Probably the most important thing in laser engraving is understanding the material test. And so many people get into this hobby and pay no attention to material testing, and you'll see these people on the forums asking the same question: what are your settings? Man, does that drive me crazy. Well, these folks, they do not have the patience to learn, nor are they taking the time to learn the hobby, and especially the very basics. And they're setting themselves up for failure. You'll see a lot of these people go away within just a week or two. You know this because anyone who knows the hobby wouldn't be asking for other people's settings. If you're already in the business, you know you don't ask for someone else's settings. You can have baseline settings, you can have a Lightburn library with settings, but you don't go around asking other people for their settings. So where patience comes in is taking the time to understand the material that you're working with and the abilities of your laser to both engrave and cut that material. And you would think that any reasonable person would want to learn this straight off to save on material costs. But I find that most people are looking for shortcuts. And rather than taking the time to learn how to get their own settings, they ask other people for theirs. But what they don't realize and understand is that someone else's settings are not going to work in their environment, with their material, or even with their laser. So this is where patience comes in, and learning how to use the laser before jumping into projects. There are no shortcuts in laser engraving, or life for that matter. And material testing is a very basic function that you need to learn before you even get started. You have to understand the concept and the practice. Going hand in hand with patience is determining whether you're detail oriented or not. The difference between someone who's detail oriented and someone who is not could be one person selling a product for $9 while the other person sells a similar product for $90. Learning how the laser processes everything from the dots per inch to the scanning degrees to the modes of engraving will determine how professional your products come out. And yes, you could engrave someone's name on some kitchen utensils, for instance, and sell them for $15. But on the other hand, you could also engrave their name with a bunch of graphics surrounding it, making it distinct and precious work that you won't find anywhere else, works of art, and sell the same set of utensils for $50. It's all in the details. And the more you learn about laser engraving and the parameters that are used to engrave products, the more valuable your work will be. Price and profit are all in the details, folks. Are we only up to 5? We're only up to 5. Okay. Let's move on to goals. What are your goals? Consider why you're interested in laser engraving. Are you looking for a creative outlet, a potential side business, a way to personalize gifts for family and friends, just a hobby? Clarifying your goals can help you decide if this hobby aligns with your aspirations. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on goals today. You can get all kinds of information from any self-help book on creating goals, but you should have at the very least an idea of what it is that you want to do and what steps you need to take to get it done. So a very basic set of goals might be finding the right laser and writing these down, finding the right products to make, and that could be by searching the internet and finding something that you think would sell well, or you can go on to Etsy and look at the sellers, stats, the reviews that they have, just by going down to the bottom where the feedback is on every product, and you'll see which products are selling more than others. And there's even an app that you can do comparison where it shows you how many they sell per week and per month, I think. But do some research on price of materials, packaging, shipping, and all of the things that are involved in creating and selling a product. For example, if you're going to get into this to sell products, you need to do some research on what it's going to cost you. So there's not going to be much that I can tell you about setting up your goals. That's something that you have to sit down and figure out step by step how you go from the very beginning of not knowing anything to knowing everything, and you have to figure that out yourself. And setting up goals is always better with more than one person. So if you have a wife or a brother or a sister, or get your family involved and get everyone's feedback as to what they think your goals should be. And this is called the mastermind theory. The more people you get involved in the process and the more ideas you get, the better your goals are going to be. So take advantage of the people around you for free and use them as a resource when setting up your goals. They're going to give you some good pointers that you may not have thought of. Number 7, are you willing to learn and experiment? Laser engraving involves a learning curve, from understanding the design software to optimizing the laser settings to special techniques. If you're open to learning and experimenting with different techniques, you'll likely enjoy the process. You're not going to walk into this hobby and start making money the next day or start engraving personalized gifts right away. You know, the type of quality that you would want to give as a gift is not something you're going to learn in a day. As a good friend of mine, Patrick from Source Engraving, says, you have to burn to learn. And what that means is that you have to do a lot of experimentation. Something that may look good on the screen may not look good engraved on leather, for instance. So there is a large learning curve. And until you have experience with all types of materials and how the final products come out after being laser engraved, you're probably not going to have a lot of success initially. That's going to be part of your learning curve. You have to be willing to take the time to experiment and learn from your experiments what works and what doesn't work. And yes, waste some material. That's part of the process and the cost of doing business. And sometimes it can be costly before you understand how a material reacts under a laser. You may have to make a dozen adjustments to your speed and your power and even the modes if you're doing images. And this is where what I talked about earlier, the material test, can be extremely helpful. I have personally found that the people I have trained have taken anywhere from 3 to 6 months of actual engraving before they have all of the basics down, as well as understanding how different materials react to a laser and learning all of the design tools. So no matter what you're getting into this hobby for, learning and experimenting are going to be the fundamentals of producing quality and projects, whether they be for friends or family or for sale or business. Item number 8, can you dedicate time to maintenance? Regular maintenance is essential to keep your laser in good working condition. It's like any other business that's out there. Got to keep your equipment clean. If you're willing to commit time to upkeep and maintenance, you can extend the machine's lifespan and maintain quality results. For me, at the end of every day when I use a laser, I'm going to clean it and I'm going to keep it maintained. At the very least, I'll clean the lens and I'll clean under the honeycomb bed, and I'll also touch up any of the rails where there might be some debris. Make sure that there's no debris on them. Maybe give them a wipe if there's a lot of soot, and possibly put a little grease on them. But doing some little basic maintenance for just a couple minutes is very important. The important thing is that you keep your laser in good working order, because what can happen is you may have a particular file that you're running off and you're selling in your online store, for example, or maybe at your craft booth on the weekend. And the next day you come in and you've got all of your settings down. The day before everything worked perfectly, but today, for some reason, your settings didn't quite work. Didn't quite engrave it the way it used to, or maybe didn't quite cut it out all the way. Well, this comes down to maintenance, and these machines require a lot of maintenance. In my opinion, it's daily maintenance at the end of every day. And I know a lot of people out there are going to tell you every 30 hours or every 40 hours or something like that is when you need to do your maintenance and clean your lens and so forth. Well, I don't find that to be true. And most likely, you're not going to find it to be true either. And you might be at 20 or 25 hours and realize that you've just cracked the lens and your laser is useless. Well, if you had just dedicated that 5 or 7 or 10 minutes at the end of the day after running all of your jobs to at least, at the bare minimum, clean your lens, that would have never happened and put you out of business for 10 or 14 or 15 days until your new lens comes in. I've heard some people that crack the lens in a day, in the middle of the day, when they're doing things like painted canvas and painted glass and things like that. So maintenance, in my opinion, is paramount. And if you're not the type of person that keeps your machine perfectly maintained, you're not going to keep a perfect production line of templated items. Period. If you want to know if you're that type of person, just ask yourself, when was the last time you checked the oil on your car? Or lawnmower, for that matter. I have to laugh when I see these videos on YouTube, creators that are using a machine that's covered in debris. And sometimes I wonder how that machine is still working. But that's one thing that you will never see in any of my videos. My machines will always be clean and maintained. And I believe that that is a really important aspect of laser engraving, especially if you're doing this as a business. Number 9, do you enjoy problem solving? I can tell you that laser engraving may involve troubleshooting issues that arise during operations, such as design alignment, material compatibility, machine calibration. If you enjoy solving problems, this can be a positive aspect for you. You can turn a negative into a positive. Now, going back to budget, if you take the time initially researching the best machine for your needs and the highest quality machine that you can find and make the investment in a quality machine, you can mitigate many of the problems that come with laser engravers. Now, if you're in the CO2 market, for example, and you take the time to do your research and you decide on a thunder laser, let's say, the chances are you're not going to have very many problems with it as compared to buying a cheap Chinese laser for 1/3 the cost from one of these OEM branded companies or eBay. If you're getting into the diode laser market and you buy a high quality commercial type machine like the Rolly Automation Lasermatic series, you'll also likely have no problems for a very long time to come. However, if you buy it cheap, you're going to probably have to spend quite a bit of time enjoying a problem solving experience, because that's what's going to come with a cheap machine, or one that has little R&D or quality control out of the factory. Very few of them do. And finally, number 10, what resources are available to you? Consider the availability of local maker spaces, online forums, tutorials, learning resources that can support your journey into laser engraving. I know one person that started a laser YouTube channel, and he's doing it from a makerspace, and you would never know it if he didn't tell you. Ultimately, hobby laser engraving can be a rewarding and enjoyable activity if it aligns with your interests, your skills, and your goals. Take time to research, explore, and perhaps try out an engraving experience at a makerspace before fully committing. Or maybe you have a friend that has a laser engraver. They're becoming very popular, and lots of people have them. If the prospect of working on creative projects, learning new skills, and producing personalized items excites you, hobby laser engraving might be a great fit. And I'm going to end this video today with a quick story about whether or not you can make money at this, because I know I'm going to get a ton of questions about, can you make money laser engraving and how much? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, you might be able to make a ton of money at this, or you might not make anything at all. It's all up to you, your planning, the amount of time and personal investment you put into this to not only learn, but become proficient at laser engraving. That makes the difference. And then you might even have to be lucky or have a good business plan based on all of the things that I've discussed with you here today. I'll give you a quick story about being lucky, because it can happen. And in fact, it happened to me when I didn't want it to. So about a year ago, I had a young lady that came to work for me for somewhere around minimum wage. I think it was $10 an hour. And she was here from a local university, the University of New Orleans. She took this job to get college credit for lab work. So I was happy to have somebody that would work for $10 an hour, and she was happy to get the extra credit at school. Well, not long after she came to work for me, I got an email from someone in Washington State, excuse me, a business broker, and he represented an Amazon seller that he set up in business. And this seller did personalized gifts on Amazon, but his laser tube went out and he was having other problems with his laser as well and couldn't fulfill his orders. So the broker asked me if we could set up a relationship with the seller where I OEM branded the orders that he got from Amazon. And after a couple of bumps in the road, we were able to work out all the details from the spreadsheets of the sales every day to the packaging and branding of the items and the labeling and the shipping. And I think we made a pretty equitable deal. So I asked Linda if she wanted to get involved in this opportunity as more of a full-time job before I actually made the deal with this seller. And after a few hours of discussion and looking at the possibility of a decent income, she decided that she wanted to get involved. She only had a few months of school left. So I got a commercial space not far from here and set her up with 3 different lasers. We started working with this Amazon seller and things went pretty well, and we started making decent money, and it's only been about 14 months or so, and the broker wound up recommending 2 other Amazon sellers, one in Rhode Island and the other one in North Carolina, that couldn't keep up with their business. And to make a long story short, the shop now employs 8 people and in 2023 grossed almost $1 million. So this is what I call getting lucky. It wasn't by design, and it wasn't anything that I really wanted to do. I started this because I saw an opportunity that can turn into a very profitable business, and that was the reason that I presented it to Linda. Now, this is not going to be a typical example in any way, shape, or form. It was just being in the right place at the right time and getting the right email. None of the advice that I've given you in this video applied to this particular venture. It was more or less something that was pushed on me, that I pushed on Linda, and I'm glad that I did now. And while she went on to get her degree from UNO and graduated last summer, she's now working full-time in the other laser shop, not using her degree. And with the new year, I've decided to gift her the business because it's not something that I really want to do in the first place, being retired. It's more like a job for me, even if it's only going over 1 day a week to do the books. So I'm taking a small retirement paycheck that'll last the rest of my life, and she's building a business that might last the rest of hers. Who knows? But it's not something that anyone should expect. Typically, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of planning, and a lot of hard work to even make your first dollar. I tell you this story because I hear quite a few stories on the internet and YouTube from people who went from nothing to making $10,000 a month in their first month. And that's probably not going to happen to 99.9% of the people out there. However, following the principles in this video will get you on the right track to earning money by laser engraving. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that watch these rags to riches videos and they say, I'm going to do the same thing without any planning. Well, for the other 99.9% of you out there, to sum up the entire video, if you don't plan, you're planning to fail. I'm sure you've heard that somewhere once before. So hopefully, if you're on the fence and wondering if laser engraving is right for you, this video has given you some pointers and tips to help you make that decision. I wasn't planning on this video going quite this long, and I thought I could get these top 10 reasons out a lot more quickly than this, but hopefully you've gotten some valuable information that was worth your time, and you can use in real life to maybe make a decision as to whether or not you want to get started in laser engraving. I've never done a talking head video before. This is my very first one, but I don't think it's going to be the last, because There are a lot of topics in my head that I think need discussion, or maybe to put it a better way, bullet points. I've got a few more ideas that I'm going to sketch out some notes or some bullet points and maybe put them into more talking head videos to try and help the community with this hobby. So if you're still with me, I want to thank you so much for watching and taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch the entire video. And I really hope that it's given you some ideas to help you make your decision. Or for those who have already started and aren't making money, maybe this video gave you some tips on how to turn that around. And those are my thoughts. So as always, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Maybe another talking head video. Who knows? See you, folks.